fourth graders. Welcome back to reading class. Happy Tuesday. This week we are going to be talking about integrating information from two texts. So we are going to be reading two texts that are about similar topics, and we're going to be thinking about how are they the same and how are they different. So we are going to be comparing and contrasting, which is something that we have done a lot this year, and we're going to be comparing and contrasting two nonfiction texts. So let's just review. When we compare, we're going to talk about how are things the same, and when we contrast, we're going to look at how are things different. And we're going to look at just a few different options of how things might be the same or how they might be different. So your article or your nonfiction text might have illustrations that you can compare and contrast, the descriptions you can compare and contrast. If your text gives you a procedure, you can compare and contrast it to another text. If your passage gives you information, or you can compare and contrast your author's point of view or their perspective. So how would we compare and contrast two texts? So this week in your Google Classroom, you are going to be reading two different texts that are about similar topics, and you're going to be thinking about how are they the same and how are they different. So how are we going to do that? So the first thing you can do is to number the passages. Now in your Google Classroom, your passages are going to be on different slides. So you don't have to number them. They're already numbered for you. But if we were doing this in person, you could number your passage. You're going to read your text and you're going to determine the topic. So what are they about? You're going to think about your author's purpose. Why are they writing this piece? Why is it important that we're reading these pieces? You're going to look for ideas that are the same. You're going to look for ideas that are different. And then you're going to make a chart or a graphic organizer to sort your thoughts. And we are going to do this together. And you are also going to do this on your own. So just to review some compare words of how they might be similar, you could have same, also, both, alike, in common, similarly, and in the same way. So if we were going to do some writing about our two different passages, or if you wanted to contrast, if you wanted to talk about how they were different. So you could say different, although, but, unlike, on the other hand, however, and differ. So together we are going to read two quick passages. Now these passages are about similar topics, but they're not going to give us all of the same information. So we're going to read one about fossil fuels and one about renewable energy. And together we are going to fill out a Venn diagram. On this side in the pink, we're going to talk about what did the article say about fossil fuels. On this side in the blue, we are going to talk about what did the article say about renewable energy. And then in the middle, what did both articles tell us? What did they have in common? So let's read these together. We are going to start with fossil fuels. So what are fossil fuels? Fossil fuels are energy sources, including coal, oil, and natural gas. They are formed over millions of years from the remains of prehistoric plants and animals that were covered by layers of sediment, which is mud, rock, and sand, and water. These layers are under enough pressure to cause the plants and animals to break down and transform into coal, oil, or natural gas. Because this process takes millions of years, we can't sustain the use of fossil fuels. That means we can't keep using it over and over again. At the rate that humans are using energy for electricity and powering motors, we may run out of fossil fuels in the next 100 years. Since fossil fuels take millions of years to create, this source of energy is considered non-renewable. Not only are these sources non-renewable, but they also have negative effects on our environment. Coal mining is stripping our land, while oil is polluting our atmosphere. All of these reasons are driving experts to search for cleaner, more sustainable energy sources. So I want you to remember what we read in our fossil fuels article while we are reading our article about renewable energy. And I want you to think while we are reading this next one, why would we read these two passages together? Why do they go together? So, renewable energy. What should we do about the world's energy crisis? Many scientists and environmentalists are searching for the best answer to that question. Instead of using fossil fuels that will eventually be depleted or run out, we can use renewable energy resources. First, we have solar energy. Solar energy is the energy that we receive from the sun. Bright minds have created a device called a solar panel that helps collect the sun's energy. This energy can then be stored or used to power electric devices and motors. Secondly, we have wind energy. Wind energy can be harnessed using wind turbines. These wind turbines, pictured in the top right of the photograph, so this is our wind turbine, look like large windmills. The blades of the turbine rotate as the winds blow past them, and the motor turns to collect energy in a generator, which can be used to power electricity. Both of these forms of energy are renewable. They are also safe for the environment, unlike the hazardous use of fossil fuels. The cost of equipment to collect these forms of energy has continued to drop as we have found more cost efficient ways of producing them, and we hope that these can be the answer to our energy crisis. So, as I was reading both of those passages, I hope you were thinking, why would they go together? Why did we read these passages together? What were they both telling me? So let's talk about our fossil fuels article. What did we learn in that article? So we learned that coal, oil, and natural gas are all fossil fuels. We learned that it takes millions of years to create fossil fuels, and that because of this, we may run out of fossil fuels because we use them to power our houses, our cars, everything we use. And we also learned that using these fuels can cause harm to the environment, right? We talked about mining and it talked about what the oil is doing to our environment. So now let's talk about our renewable energy. Our article said that it is the opposite of fossil fuels, right? Our solar energy is energy that comes from the sun, and it said that we can use solar panels to collect this energy. Wind turbines can collect energy from the wind, and we saw a picture of those. We know that renewable energy sources are safer for the environment. They're not causing harm to our environment. So we know that both of those articles gave us information about different energy sources. So why did we read those together? We read those together because those are both about energy sources to power our world. One of them talked about harmful and sources that might run out, and one of them talked about sources that are renewable, things that are not harmful, and things that we're not going to run out of. But they were both about energy sources. They just gave us different information. So our author wrote those to inform us about fossil fuels and about renewable energy. And we're going to watch a quick video about making connections between different ideas and different passages, because sometimes you may read two passages that are paired together, which is what we are doing this week, and you may think, I don't know why those were put together. I don't know what connections I can find in that passage. So this video is going to help us to make those connections.
Hello, readers. Today we're going to talk about making connections. So, I don't mean to brag, but I have at least one friend. I'm kind of a big deal. I have friends at work, friends from the schools I attended, friends in my apartment building in my neighborhood, friends from places I used to live. Each friend is connected to me in some way. Maybe we met in the elevator, or on the train, or at the community garden. In some cases, I introduced my friends, and now they're friends with each other, and even hang out without me. Each friend is connected to me or to each other in a different way, and for a different reason. And just in the way that people can be friends with each other, ideas can be friends with each other too. Understanding how ideas in a text connect to each other and to the topic of the text will help me understand what I'm reading. Good readers make connections between ideas in a text. When I look at a passage, I ask myself, what do all these sentences have in common? How are they connected? Let's explain with a brief passage about building ships. Long ago, shipbuilders used iron nails and bolts because iron was easy to find. They soon learned the disadvantages of using this metal on a boat. Iron quickly rusts and decays, especially near the salty ocean. They switched to using brass, which lasts longer. I want to use this paragraph to describe 3 common ways authors show connections: comparison, cause and effect, and sequence. Comparison. What's the same or different between two ideas? So what's similar between brass and iron is one example. We can say, okay, both of these are metals and both were used in shipbuilding. Now what's different between them? Well, iron rusts quickly in the ocean, and it does so faster than brass, right? Brass lasts longer. Now let's talk about cause and effect. How does one event or idea cause another event or idea? Well, what happens when you put a ship with iron bolts into salt water? It rusts and decays. The ocean causes the iron to corrode and rust. So what did shipbuilders do as a result? They switched to using brass. And finally, sequence. What order did things happen in? Now the paragraph begins with long ago and talks about iron before it talks about brass. It then describes how shipbuilders switched to brass, so iron came first in the sequence. So when I read this passage on shipbuilding, even though it is very short, I'm able to make a lot of connections between ideas. Doing this deepened my understanding and helps me to become a better reader. Now, not every sentence or idea is connected to every other sentence or idea. Just like not every single one of my friends is friends with all of my other friends. And that's okay too. Our goal is to think about how those sentences connect to the topic overall. Think about the big picture. Understanding the connections between sentences is one of many ways you can strengthen your skills as a reader. You can learn anything. David out.
Okay, so in your classroom today, fourth graders, you are looking for something called Tuesday Heat Transfer versus States of Matter, and it is a Google slide. Now, when you open it, it will look like this. So you have two reading passages, one about states of matter and one about heat transfer that you are reading. And just like we did together, you are going to fill out your graphic organizer. So what does the article say about states of matter? What does the article say about heat transfer? And why are we reading them together? What do both texts say? What do they have in common? Now, these passages are kind of long, so I have posted videos of me reading them. So if you would rather listen and follow along with me, you can do that as well. But make sure that you are listening for those key points, that key information from both texts, and make sure you're listening to why did we read those two together? Why did I have you read states of matter and heat transfer together? What did they both say? What did they both talk about? When you are done, make sure you come back here and click mark as done or submit. In your reading classroom, I have also added a integrating information from two passages anchor chart. So this is in there for you to reference this week as you are working. If you get a little confused and want to go back and read that anchor chart, you can. And just a reminder that I will have office hours today from 2:30 to 3 o'clock. If you need to hop on to ask me any questions from this week or from last week since I was out, I will be there. Good job, fourth graders. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you on Thursday.